Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Daylon over here. I'm the founder of CuriousCore. And tonight we have a very special guest, Ngeow from Mindvalley. He's the Chief Product Officer over there. And I'll share a little bit about his bio in a short while. But first, just to share a little bit why we're doing this webinar. We've been doing this since May, right in the middle of COVID, when many design events were canceled. And we decided to do something for the community by running a weekly webinar for the UX design community. So I've started inviting friends, and Wuhan was naturally very busy. So I asked him multiple times before he agreed and said yes. If not, he would have been quite an early guest in this case. But I would like to share a little bit about his bio. Okay, so Wuhan is a interdisciplinary product and process designer. He has over 15 years of product and design experience, which includes crafting digital products and defining guiding principles, improving existing digital experience, craft digital workflows and toolchains, and grow product teams, and ignite online communities, right? So some of the interesting things about his background, we were just talking about it earlier this evening. Some interesting things about his background is that he has been a TV show host. He has been a TV show host. He has been a web developer, okay? And I feel like I'm almost reading the bio of a unicorn. And he was also the head and vice president of UX design for multiple companies previously. So today he works for Mindvalley. If you're in the self-development space, you probably have heard of this company before. They are a global company, and they have done a lot of interesting things, including testing and marketing to global audiences. So you might have seen their ads before. So please join me in welcoming Wuhan in this special interview. And it's Daylon over here. We are CuriousCore, and we run a UX career accelerator in Singapore. So thank you, Wuhan, for joining us tonight. Let's start off with a question. So what do you do?
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, you're welcome. What do you do on a day-to-day basis as a Chief Product Officer at Mindvalley?
As a Chief Product Officer, my job is to support all the product managers in the company, and it's all about alignment. It's all about coaching them and helping them out, remove their impediments and blockers, and also because of my previous UX background, I'm also one of the stakeholders when it comes to reviewing UX solutions and designs. So for me now is mostly coaching the product managers. I also coach the technical leads and also the UX designers under my product management value stream.
Okay, thanks for sharing. So I think one of the interesting points is that you have done some product management before, and you have also been a design leader before. So how do you make that transition, or what is the difference over there?
I think 5-6 years ago, when I actually I actually started out my career as a software developer. I actually started out as a full stack developer, web developer, right? And it was from the development. It was from being a software developer and receiving UX designs from an agency that I didn't agree with, And then I basically said, okay, these are horrible designs. I'm just gonna, as a developer, I'm just gonna do my own designs, right? And that basically transitioned me over from a software developer to a product designer. Okay. And when I was doing head of UX and design back at Mindvalley, there was actually no concept of product management. It was all very. It was actually it was all very unstructured, very collaborative, right? I mean, we're talking about 6, 7 years, 8 years ago. Scrum wasn't even a thing yet. Agile wasn't even a thing yet. We just worked together, lah. You know, as designer, you know, as a designer, as developer, back end people. There was no such thing as Scrum. It's really just, you know, every week we just sync up and then we just, you know, work together in parallel, right? And it's only when I left Maxis, when I left Mindvalley about 4 years ago to join Maxis, was when I also started to realize that Scrum was becoming a thing. You know, Agile, enterprise Agile was becoming a thing. And so I was kind of like trusted into that role at Maxis, even though I was head of product design. I realized that in order to execute on these design solutions, we actually needed to restructure the entire product management, the entire product management tree, value chain in Maxis. And I was very, very fortunate that I had the backing and support of a lot of the senior leadership team, and we were able to, you know, really just upend everything and started to introduce agile practices and stuff into the organization, and that was where I kind of like started to take on kind of like, even though I was head of UX design, I was a proxy. I was like a proxy, you know, head
agile
of
coach.
Like, yeah. I mean, you know, and I was also very lucky as well, because as part of the upskilling, the company also invested in a lot of training, and I was able to also go and join these trainings and had a lot of the practices that I do validated in terms of the academic context.
Okay, that's
so
lovely.
So it's one thing to practice agility in a small, you know, 10-man startup, but it's a totally hairy thing when you have a complex organization, you know, 300 engineering team, 500 engineering team. It really makes sense to get proper training from people who have actually run organizations like that. And I was very blessed to have been able to be exposed to that community and to that type of training at Maxis. So that's how I transitioned. It was a timing thing about how the profession itself was evolving in Malaysia. We were catching up with how Europeans and Americans were practicing it. It's like if people were to ask me like, how do you go from UX to chief product officer, right? I would say timing and luck had a lot to do with it.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And by the way, for our friends who are not in Southeast Asia, Maxis happens to be one of Malaysia's largest telecommunications company. So Wuhan was actually there. Okay, so there's a question. Is Mindvalley planning to set up office in Singapore?
Yes, we are, but I can't reveal any more than that.
Oh, that's interesting. Exciting.
It's just a yes, we are.
You can't say what kind of roles you're hiring for or anything like that.
Too soon.
Too soon. Okay, got it. Well, you heard it first. Mindvalley is going to have an office in Singapore here in our show. So Wuhan, I was just wondering, you know, you said as a developer, you were quite upset with the kind of designs that your designers were passing you. So how should UX designers work with engineers? You know, like how should they work together?
I think it's a bit unfair to compare from like I can't even remember 10 years ago, right?
Okay.
We can't compare how things were 10, 12 years ago. Than how the practice has evolved today.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I think if there are UX practitioners here today, you know, it's about collaboration. It's about inclusive design, right? It's about having that empathy, that, you know, really is about that conversation, right? With all the people, that the stakeholders, with the people who are going to build the thing. And having a structured approach to make sure that everybody feels like they participated in the solution, and have buy-in on the thing lah. Obviously, the next level in this skill set is what happens if you have to deal with a very rock star developer who just disagree with your approach, right? How would you then inculcate the culture of, disagree but commit, right? That's the next level.
Yeah.
And again, in a small team, you probably can spend time and lobby properly. But as we grow into more complex organizations where you might jump into an existing team already, right? How do you integrate yourself? How do you not in a way not make enemies and stuff? That's a totally different set of skill set if you want to progress higher as a UX practitioner.
Lovely. So it sounds like communication skills are playing quite a big role.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really as simple as that sometimes.
Thanks for all your questions, everyone. We have another one. And for those of you who just joined us, whether you're on Facebook Live or over here in Zoom, we have Wuhan from Mindvalley, the Chief Product Officer. Okay. So Ed is asking, what are the key challenges you are facing as the Chief Product Officer or as in Mindvalley? What are some of the key challenges?
It is related to communication, right? I've done this thing in large companies, I've done this thing in small companies. All have same problem, which is alignment, right? Whenever there's a friction in the product practice, it is almost always a disconnect between your key stakeholders, your upstream, and the people who are building and developing stuff, right? And that's also where I've noticed a lot of I do consult some startups as well who are facing similar challenges as well. You can't practice Scrum stubbornly, like people who just want to adopt Scrum. I am quite flexible when it comes to whether Scrum or Kanban or whatever. But to me, always having to refer back to the original Agile Manifesto is very, very important, right? I've had to coach and advise dysfunctional teams because they've allowed processes and stuff to get in the way. Things like, you must have your PRD ready, or you must have your FD ready, and then my follow-up question would be, why you all need to have PRD on? I thought you're Agile. And then there will almost always be the follow-up answer is almost always, we are always not sure what we should build, and that's why because we're always building the wrong thing, and then stakeholders are not happy when they do the demo or they share the thing. Then they decided to put in comprehensive documentation. Right?
Yeah. So for those of you who are new to this, I thought of just kind of bringing up the manifesto for Agile software development. So since we're on the topic of Agile, and you mentioned that one of the common mistakes is that people tend to over document things. And what are some of the other mistakes that it's
always two extremes, right? Either there's no documentation or over documentation. I've seen documentation that nobody reads one.
I see.
And I've also seen teams where zero documentation because somebody in the value chain say documentation is too slow, so don't need to document, right?
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah. So those are to answer the question, the challenges are not new to me right now. Taking over as CPO at Mindvalley, it is very, very, very similar to the challenges that I faced in all my previous rodeos, right?
Okay.
But yeah, for me using this and on behalf of the Agile Manifesto team, this website is stuck in the 90s.
It is, but I always refer to it too. I mean, I do. Yeah. Whenever I want to teach people Agile, I say, hey, come back and look at this.
Yes, it's a guiding principle, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
To be able to say, okay, you guys are arguing over the this process lah, these tool lah.
Yeah, exactly.
What exactly is the crux of it? Is really sometimes just a simple matter of, I have a disagreement and you have a disagreement. Can we come to the same page? Are we actually still solving the same problem, right? And for me, because I'm used to seeing these anti-patterns, knowing how to tactically like resolve these things, maybe I'll write a book one day lah. It's like a cheat sheet lah. How to tackle all these things.
That sounds good. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I think especially in the context of working in Asia Pacific with stakeholders over here, I think there's a lack of literature around this area, which is also one of the reasons why we do this webinar, right? Because ways of working over here is quite different in the US and Europe, and culture is also different. Like whether people would like to be more confrontational or less confrontational, that's also very different. Okay, so I hope we answered your question, Ed. Praveen from the Zoom chat asks, as a leader, how do you maintain and monitor your team's mental health during these times?
So I am not a micromanager. I have a very, very grown up product management team. I have very grown up designers who I've worked with for some of them I worked for 7 years back when I was in Mindvalley, right? So there's a very, very high level of trust already at Mindvalley. However, when I joined Maxis or when I joined CIMB and stuff, how do you accelerate trust among your team members so that this can be solved, right? Yeah. There are always certain tactical things you can try. Doesn't really matter whether you're doing it in a face-to-face meeting or you're doing it in a virtual meeting, right? One thing that I do a lot, and I always budget time for that, is that before we kick off any meeting, we basically do a round of check-ins lah, right? And that does two things. One is that it's a pulse check on your team members. And two is also just to prepare everybody to be engaged in the meeting, right? So you can just do an energizer, just get everybody to share, what is something amazing that happened for you this week, or something that's not so good for you this week, or you can try all sorts of a bit of probing questions just to figure out people's mental health. Another thing that I do is also using Slack. We use a stand-up bot on Slack. To get all my direct reports to just update every day. Nothing fancy lah. It's really just to share, like, how did yesterday go? What's your plan for today? And whether you have any impediments. To me, the level of engagement there will already give you a bit of a clue on whether you need to
a pulse check.
It's a very nice pulse check, And for me, definitely, I try to inject a bit of fun into the stand-ups, right? The idea behind the stand-up is not that I want to micromanage you guys, but it's the easiest way to keep everybody in the loop on what you're up to. And I deliberately also put in there sometimes, like, oh man, today I feel very, very lazy, so I'm just gonna do some less taxing work or whatever, and that kind of like gives everybody a permission to acknowledge that, hey, if you're not feeling too good. Exactly, right? Of course, that is because I have that alignment with senior management. My boss is also like that, so I'm like that, right? If your boss is a dictator, then it's definitely hard lah, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
so that makes a lot of sense.
I will put a caveat there lah, right?
Okay, yeah, that's wonderful. And so you say you try and instill some fun, right, into these meetings, which can be kind of repetitive because people do it every day. So how do you instill fun in some of these rituals? Yeah.
I mean, it's when we say fun, it's not the actual work is fun, but you just bring back the element of humanity to it, right? In a large organization, it's very easy to just be robotic about your reports, right? So that is also another thing that I've been coaching a lot of my teams. First thing I do is kind of like give them feedback on their presentations. When we do sprint reviews or we do sprint planning, right? I've been coaching my team members and say, hey, don't put a slide there with 10 bullet points and then you're just reading off it.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you can easily just share that doc and let people read themselves, right? If you're going to be doing a meeting or whatever, make a show out of it. Put a bit of effort to tell a story, right? You can just bring in some key highlights or whatever. What do you present, like, out of this long list of things? What are the three, four things that excites you, right? And share your side of the story about why you are excited about this one, this two or three things, and then you just cap it. You can cap it off and say, oh, and of course that's not the only thing that we're working on. There's this long laundry list. Feel free to pass it on your own, and then Slack me if you need some details on some of these things, right? I think the moment when I started giving feedback to my managers about this, a light switch really turns on for them. They're like it's like they never knew that they had permission to do that. Because there's a previous practice where it's very robotic, it's very it's very
clinical,
structured or whatever, clinical, right? And that is something that I do a lot lah.
Okay, so it's kind of like breaking that. I'll say, like that the thing that you it makes it feel like you're not forced to do it lah. Like it's just kind of breaking that. That's kind of cool. We have Long from the chat asking,
Hi, Long.
Do you have a team culture of UX engineering to bridge design and development?
UX engineering now. I like how we're putting engineering on a lot of the things that we do. I'm gonna put product engineering. Product engineering. Jokes aside lah. The bridging is important, right? It is so much more valuable when your designers are working together with engineers. And there is definitely a jargon language barrier, right? So in this case, I have a unique experience because I used to be an engineer, and then I became a UX designer. So I have been very proactive in pushing the UX designers to engage with engineers and vice versa. And one of the things that I always push forward to is to tell people, if somebody is sharing something and then it's full of jargon, call it out. All the acronyms or whatever, especially in the design silos. I can't speak for all product organizations, but I have consulted a few teams where the design team is a bit silo one. The design team works closely with the stakeholders or work closely with the C-level, and then they'll come up with a design solution deck or whatever. And then after that, it's like, oh yeah, we got the prototype ready, and then they just throw it to the engineering team. And then usually what happens is the PRD comes into play lah. You end up spending one sprint doing discovery because that is when the design team is now having to explain again the solution to the engineers, and the engineers have got 100 questions about all the different edge cases and stuff. And oftentimes when this happens enough times, the stakeholders get very pissed off. They're like, hey, I already given the design green light 2 sprints ago. Why haven't we got anything
because they didn't chat, they didn't start communicating before that? No, okay.
Yeah, exactly, right. And oftentimes also I would hear the story of how the tech leads don't want to be part of these design workshops because they're like, you just tell me what to build. Right?
I don't want to design.
I don't want to design. I don't want to, this is not my forte, right? And for me, again, it's about, I also, that's why for me under product management, I also coach the tech leads. I say like, you all need to get engaged so that if you can get these questions out earlier, the actual discovery cycle is way shorter already, right?
For sure.
What I have also recently got the team to realize is that they need to put a constraint on the design discovery. Right? Because if you're doing Scrum properly, right, you already put constraint in your sprints, right? You basically like you cap how many number of tasks the team can deliver and stuff. you need to actually apply the same constraint in design and discovery so that you can avoid the situation of the designers are just prototyping and designing a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But your engineers now have a huge backlog to do assessment and discovery, and they don't even have time to prioritize for you.
Right. So sounds like the moral of the story is to involve the engineering team early, and to communicate with them. And also, as designers, we should be quite realistic about what we design, especially when it comes to maybe feature prioritization, right? So it's almost like the whole entire product team needs to be involved. Product owner, designer, and engineer needs to be involved in terms of like prioritizing what needs to be built first.
Yeah. They need to be. For me, product management is a job, not a role, right? It's a yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk about that in a bit. Like when I was in enterprise, it is a role. It's not a job. I have head of marketing, whole product owner roles.
Yeah. For me, I advocate like specific people need to share specific responsibilities of product management, right? And it can be fluid, but you need to be very clear about like delegating this to the right people to improve outcomes and output both, right? I know that there are some extreme agile practices where they overly prioritize outcome, and then they also die because they workshop, and then don't get clarity. Keep on just end up like overthinking the solution, right? And then by the time they launch, it's too late, or they've already ran out. They've already ran out of runway. Happens too, right?
Okay, so
you have to have a balance of outcome and output.
Which means shipping and also like knowing what to ship, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I hope we answered your question on that, Long. So Ed is asking, how do you manage the conflict between product, tech, I guess, engineers and designers, and then business owners? Like it can get quite messy. So especially when it compromises the design, right? The design vision, maybe.
Not the first time somebody asked me this. I will share with you my approach, okay? I don't know whether there is a shorter cut, but for me, right, I am very mindful of in a team meeting setting. If you have a disagreement, don't do kind of like public criticizing. Don't do that.
Don't shame people.
I actually prefer don't shame people. Don't try to avoid that in a especially in a cross-functional team setting. I'm very mindful of that. So when I'm chairing the meetings also, I basically stop that whenever I see a bit of like sometimes people shoot So I try to prevent that all the time. Always resolve these conflicts one-on-one, or in smaller groups. And sometimes you do need to, for myself as a chief of product or chief of design, if you're jumping into a new team or new organization, you probably need to invest a little bit more time to build up all these relationships with all these key people or whoever, because if you all are familiar with Tuckman's team forming, I can't remember the actual.
Is it the forming, norming,
yes,
storming, and performing?
Yes. I highly recommend that if you are in a role where you need to resolve conflict and stuff, to read up more about the Tuckman's model, because it will help you, give you a framework of one, recognizing like, okay, this team, what stage is it at, right? Too long didn't read. When you're in a forming stage, everybody is not really trusting each other, but everybody is nice, And then when you suddenly go into a storming stage, you still don't trust each other, but now you actually forced to work with each other, right? And then you start to rub each other all differently and stuff and so on and so forth. So for me, if you are aware of the state of your teams and you are tactically like resolving things, so that you bring your team to a higher level of maturity, generally I don't find conflicts happen now, because once you have a high level of trust, there's no conflict. You only have conflict because you don't have trust. Your tech team, your engineer has got like grudge against the designer because bloody hell, the designer is now come back with another last minute change, and then now you got to do it again, right? Or the business owner come back down now and then say, oh, we got new data, we need to pivot now and stuff and so on and so forth, right? The conflict is actually a lack of trust. Right? If you have high trust, when this thing comes down to you, you will openly ask the designer, right? Like, hey, why keep on changing, you would be able to have very frank conversations about
honest conversation.
Honest conversations. You're able to take a step back and say, okay, I don't mind doing this for you one more time, but we need to have a workflow. We need to have a process to avoid this thing, right? Getting the different people to understand why are they upset about the way the other party is handing down work, right?
Yeah, you mentioned the word trust a lot. I think that like I'm not counting, but then I overheard it a lot throughout the last half an hour.
Yes.
So how do we accelerate trust? Especially if let's say we're someone who is new to an organization. What are some of your tips? For doing that?
Okay lah, I'm cheating lah. Okay, I have a reputation.
Okay.
So I cheat a little bit lah, right? Because I have a reputation, generally speaking.
Okay, so you use your credentials.
Yeah. So I cheat a little bit, right?
Okay.
But tactically, it is also about what are your own motivations lah, right? Do you actually have an agenda? And again, I not everybody can follow my style lah, right? For me, I reached a stage in my career where before I join a company, I make it very, very clear, right? What's the problem that you guys need me to solve? Do I have full autonomy? I will be fully transparent about my approaches. I'm just gonna, if you pardon my French, DGAF, right? I'm just gonna say whatever that I have to say, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, right? And when I can establish trust at a leadership level, the trickle down effect is, I mean, from my personal experience lah, I find that the trickle down effect is quite fast lah.
I see.
Because of modeling behavior lah.
For sure. We model the leader, right?
Yes, that's right.
So it sounds like once leader, maybe if there are conflicts, maybe it's the leadership team above that doesn't have trust, that's or might be sowing discord. Okay. So someone made someone made a comment about your cat. So does it have a name?
Which one? I've got 5 cats. So,
oh dear. Okay, it was a black one, or you have like 5 black cats.
The black one is Lily.
Okay. So
like Black Lily.
Black
if you guys are
Lily. What's Black Lily?
It's a
oops, sorry.
It's a goth reference.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know about it. Okay, anyway. Michael asks, how do you get buy-in from seniors or peers who are not familiar with the value of UX research and gain their trust? Yeah.
Okay, Michael. Again, for my answer is very unique to my situation also, right? So in every one of my career jumps, I was hired because they already valued UX research and the value of UX. So I was never hired to convince stakeholders or C-levels why they should invest in UX. My paradigm here is that I am a builder. So I build houses. My job is not to convince you why you need to build a house. So
makes sense.
Personally, I avoid jumping into a job where I have to advocate and lobby to explain to people, why UX is important, why product design is important, why agility is important. I'm just the person who executes on, the UX initiative, the UX, bringing in the measures, bringing in the digital workflows, I have never had to tell people or convince people why they need to,
But hang on.
yeah.
I was wondering, even though you have the mandate, right, there must be at least one or two people who are not persuaded or convinced by it. Like in those cases, what do you do?
For me, it's like, do I need their help, lah? Right?
Okay.
If I do need their help, I will spend time to understand like why they don't feel that way, right? But again, I have been very lucky where I didn't need to do very much of that. And personally, I feel that it can be very draining to convince somebody who just doesn't believe in it.
Doesn't believe it
right?
in it.
Yeah. So if you are in an organization where you are always struggling to convince people about all these things, one is that kudos to you because you're trying to move the needle. But for myself personally, I built the house. I don't know and I don't really care about convincing people.
You're not
or
a salesman,
explaining to people.
Yeah.
I'm not selling the why
idea,
you need to build a
dream.
house, why you need to build why you need to build a swimming pool. For me it's like, you want to build a swimming pool, I build for you.
Okay, got it. So
Right? Yeah.
essentially, like it goes back to your engineering roots. It sounds like.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's right. I mean, because you all need to appreciate also, we are really moving towards this digital economy, right? This digital knowledge economy, right? There are so many articles, so many articles written about the value of this thing by really smart people, right?
Yeah.
By big companies and stuff. If there's one person in your organization who's like, don't believe in this thing, like honestly, it tells you something else, lah.
Okay, it does. It says a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for all the wonderful questions. And about Agile, I didn't expect it to focus so much on that, but I wanted to also take the opportunity to ask you a little bit about your global experience. So now, I know you've worked in Mindvalley for 7 years before, and you really were handling, at that point in time, I believe Mindvalley was already scaling globally. So I just wanted to understand, what's the difference between working globally and then you work for Maxis, you work for CIMB, which are more local regional banks. What's the difference between building for global design and building for like local and regional design?
I honestly don't find it very different. For me, the practice is the same. If there's any localization context, right? If you ask me, I actually had much more exposure to localization issues when it comes to UX design and stuff when I was in Maxis, because when I was in Mindvalley, even though we were global, our customer base, our market was US and Europe and all predominantly Latin-based languages. Only very recently we started looking at the non-Latin based languages seriously. But when I was in Maxis, we had to do discovery on a design system that supports Chinese, Hindi, and Bahasa Malaysia. Bahasa Malaysia and English very similar, but there are definitely some nuances there that as a UX practitioner you have to be a bit mindful of. Like for example, certain words are just longer in Bahasa.
Got it. Yes.
So to develop your design tokens, your design systems that is so defensive to support all these things, man, that is hard. That is really hard.
I see.
So many times I ended up having to challenge the technical lead, because the technical lead is like, just do separate design templates for the different languages, right? Because that's easier for them. Right, but then it's a lot harder for designers because there's a lot more assets for us to have to generate and update and stuff and so on and so forth, right? So I don't think we have solved it really, really well. I think localization and internationalization is going to be still something that is, from a design point of view, from an operational point of view, one of the hard things to do. I'm actually doing that right now in Mindvalley, and man, it's not easy. Just when you think that you found a holy grail solution, there's always some other gotcha and stuff and so on and so forth.
Sounds like Kinder Surprise. Okay. So I was just wondering, okay, there's a lot of interesting tidbits and nuggets over here. I think you mentioned something about doing design systems for each different language and locality. So right now, what I hear you say, one of your biggest challenges is doing sort of a global design system, or rather a design system that is able to scale across different localities. And do you have any learnings or that you're able to share in case some of our listeners over here are also working on the same system, right? Yeah.
I would say, you know what, guys, there are so many companies trying to solve this thing. Don't be overly attached to any one platform or tool that you're probably like maybe a little bit attached to, but you're like, oh, you know, there are some flaws that you learn to live with. Keep your eyes and ears out for new tool sets lah. That's my only advice lah.
Right. So it sounds like wait for some smart people to also figure it out, and then meanwhile you try and figure out your own way and do whatever you need to even if it's a makeshift solution, then do whatever works.
We are hybrid now. So like for UI localization, we use this thing called localize.com. Is a translation. Is not just the SDK for translation, but it's also the actual translation workflow, right? Translating an app is easy, but how do you do it in a scalable way? How do you do it in a operational way, right? So we used to use something called PO editor, and then, you know, it seems to work fine, and then suddenly out of the blue, the tech leads and stuff say, oh, actually localize.com better. So then they go and try it. You know, then we're trying it out and stuff. So it is a necessary investment. It is definitely an ongoing technical debt that you want to just, you know, be agile about, and just say, oh, you know, if we do this, if we use this, it will be faster and stuff and so on. But then we need to overhaul a bunch of things and stuff and so on and so forth. Because the operational efficiency is worth it lah.
Yeah.
And the hybrid part is the fact that localization on the UI is only one problem. Your localization on your content is a different problem. Right? So we are an e-learning company, right? We produce content. So we produce a lot of videos, we produce classes and quests and stuff and so on and so forth, right? We actually can't use localize.com for that. We actually have to build our own CMS to, you know, provide the different tabs for all the different languages.
I see. So that means you might have to tweak the design for every different language.
We have to always like be cognizant of, like, maybe every quarter or every half a year, drag your key people back onto the table and say, hey, how is everything? How's the workflow? Okay or not? You know, are we seeing higher errors and stuff and so on and so forth? Generally, what's the quality of localization? And then give some people some space to explore any better solution.
Right. I'm curious how you help your team stay grounded, because now you're in so many markets, right? You guys are operating a global company from Malaysia, very very much like the company I used to work for, which is Razer. We operate like a global company from Singapore. So I'm curious how do you all manage to, you know, stay close or stay cognizant of the market in US and Latin America and Europe, being a company that's mostly in Asia, right? Based in Asia.
Even though we are based in Asia, we actually have a lot of expats. And our CEO and our CFO are all very tuned to our key markets, which is Europe and America. So they are supported by a BI team, a BI
business
team and
intelligence.
A marketing. The BI team and a data analytics team and stuff. So I would say that we are very top down in terms of our analysis. We haven't quite brought our data awareness to the entire downstream yet. So we are very much top-down driven.
So the
data
directions
decision.
given by the leadership team,
Correct.
and then
Because
the
our
team just
leadership,
execute.
because our yes, correct. Because our leadership is very much data informed.
Yeah, and they're very tuned to the markets because maybe they
Correct.
travel
That's right.
and they've been some of them maybe have grew up there before. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. So yeah, I would like to.
It's also a tech debt, because our senior leadership, they would get the raw data dumps, and then they would manipulate the Google Sheets, right?
To their liking.
But to their liking, or I mean, you are searching for insights and patterns, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And very recently, myself and a few others, we have raised it up and said that is not scalable, because if they go on holiday, we basically don't have
you don't have insights.
Yeah.
But what about the BI team? I thought the BI team will give you insights, no?
Still very junior, They're still very junior.
Okay,
unfortunately, yeah. So we are still building out our BI, BI and our data team, because our leadership somehow or rather been very, very lucky on intuition. But after
you can't rely on intuition.
After 18 years of that, the roller coaster a bit too much, so we on the tech side, on the product side, we have started to push harder for get more eyeballs, get more people involved in the analysis.
That sounds great. I'm just wondering, do you all have say a dedicated user researcher in your staff ranks?
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because our founder CEO is very, very hands-on.
I see.
So we are not, as a product company, we are not quite last 18 years we never relied on UX research that much. And it doesn't seem like we need that yet. But I believe that once we scale to a certain level, that is something that I would probably want to establish.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Again, you basically got a CEO who's like, don't ask people what they want,
Yeah.
I will make iPhone for them,
Yeah, I get it. I've worked for one before.
Yeah. And hits and misses, but if you lasted for 18 years, mostly hits. I'm not going to argue with that.
For sure. I think there's value in the CEO staying so close to the customer and the community and has that sense check and that pulse check.
Correct.
Yeah, but I think
we have a founder who's like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can relate to that. So I think in general, in the past, you've also looked at portfolios and you've looked at hiring designers. What are some of the common mistakes you see in the portfolios you review? You can share it in the Malaysia context. I'm also quite curious to know, because we're looking to sort of like go into Malaysia as well.
Myself personally, Omar, coming from Omar, all right. For myself, again, this only relates to me because of where I am in my career, right? I always do background checks.
Okay.
The design portfolio, to me, I feel that UI UX has been so commoditized right now. In the last few years, right, I've been seeing so many spectacular UX design portfolios. Like they're all consistently okay. It's reached to that level of commodity, right? And I find that I used to do interviews where I really like goring the UX designer, like, okay, explain to me your process and stuff and so on and so forth. But these days, I just find it easier to just do reference check. I generally know somebody in most of these organizations, and I'll just try to ping my network and say, hey, I want to do a quick ref check on this person, okay or not, and a lot of times that is actually how I make my decisions on the hires.
Okay. That sounds good.
But the one thing that I would say that is a huge red flag for people who put together their UX design portfolio is that please if it's a project where it is involving a team, please mention that it involves a team. Right? Because I feel like it's a bit to me it's a big red flag lah. You know, if I see the work, right? I mean, this is me lah, right? I see a piece of work, I got no one, you know, like it's something that involves a lot of people, and if you as a candidate don't make it very clear that this is a big team effort, for me it's a bit of a red flag already lah.
I see. So not being honest, not being transparent in this case.
Yeah. To me it's like, you know, if I have to ask you already, it's a bit of a yellow flag lah. It's like you trying to what are you trying to do, you know?
It's trying to pull a fast one. Okay. Lovely. Hope we answered your question, Omar. Well, those are great. And just wondering, you know, like as someone who's been a practitioner for this long, right? Moving forward, what do you think is some of the trends you're seeing? Like what's important for, you know, UX designers to learn or to know? Yeah.
To me, I feel that the screen era is very quickly accelerating towards commoditization. You are already starting to see kind of like 99 Designs, Fiverr. You know, you can really get pretty race to zero kind of like UX work, right? And I think this is just going to just further commoditize even more. You're going to start going into design system marketplace where you can just buy a design system and then you just tweak it a little bit, you know.
So everything is getting to the lowest cost essentially.
Yeah. And I personally think that is fine, you know. But it does mean that for those of us who are still in like UX is a luxury kind of model, I mean, I really hope that you can sustain that lah, right? But for me, I feel that there's definitely a strong momentum towards stronger commoditization lah. And for UX practitioners, I feel that is something that you all need to be aware of, and then evaluate where you are today, and then kind of like, you know, obviously I cannot guess what's your luck like lah, right? You happen to be very lucky. You find a really good company that don't mind paying you a lot or whatever. That's fine now, right? But I'm willing to bet that over time you're going to find that, you know, the salaries are going to get lower and lower because of the commoditization and stuff, right? What I would say for myself as a UX practitioner, right, is that if you are just starting out here, consider the post-screen era as a UX as an area to go into, right?
So when you say post-screen, what do you mean? Do you mean like virtual reality? Do you mean like
maybe it's augmented reality, maybe it's voice assistance. I would say AR VR is a good one. Moving beyond from mobile screens, or can we start thinking even out of mobile apps would be an interesting area to go into already.
So are you saying maybe service design or process redesign or something like that?
More service design. I was a huge advocate of chat-based interfaces. I actually bet really hard. I mean, I bet really big on it, but so far still nothing yet lah.
Not yet.
I still feel that we might still move to that post app era where it's like you can interact with a lot of things with just chat.
Yeah, I do think it's a valid point. That's I had the opportunity to work on chatbots when I was about a couple of years ago, and it's actually a lot deeper than what is being implemented. Right now. Yeah. It's not a simple point and click. It's actually there's a lot of linguistics to it, and acknowledging the user, even like something as simple as that, and repeating to the user like and checking if it's the correct information to show that you're listening. So there's quite a number of nuances to it, and also making it feel like it's believable and that it's easy and it's frictionless. I think it's a very challenging thing to do from a UX writing perspective, from a design perspective as well, like designing the options and stuff like that. Yeah. So yes, by no, and my inspiration back then when I was looking at it was to look at the chat-based game apps, where they were sort of like how they design the dialogue flow and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's quite cool. Michael says, with the commoditization and general digital fragmentation, there's a lot of focus on personalization. So that's his position. In the future, do you think personalization could happen in the UI UX view? Like, what I understand from the statement is like there seems to be more fast food kind of. I guess what I hear from you is like there's more fast food kind of design. So
for me, it's like, what do you mean that in the future? We are already doing it now.
That's tools,
true. We have to do it now. I think for a lot of UX people right now, they are already like spending a lot of time doing UI UX that are personalized, right? When you're doing recommendation engines or you're doing kind of like personalized UI. So I won't say in the future, it's happening right now.
Well, Netflix is an example, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. And if using Netflix as an example, it's very little UI. Is very much UX. Content is a content UX play, right? Even the tools, even our tools today, I haven't touched Sketch for a long time. But the last time when I was still interacting with Sketch, they were already having this ability where you can connect it to a live database. Are you familiar with that?
No, I haven't heard of that.
So that you can actually start designing with real data.
Oh,
so
very cool.
So if you guys are not doing that today, which I sometimes take for granted, I just assume it's Figma, right? Yeah. I just assume that people know all these things, and then when I see a UX designer, like, why are you still designing with static data? So for everybody here, if you guys are not designing with real data, with the dynamic data, I would implore you to find out about this ability in your tool set, and start having that conversation with your back-end guy so that he or she can open up an API for you. It takes them like 10 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes to content, that's about static content and dynamic content, right? Like, and how each one. I mean, dynamic means it feels a little bit more alive in that sense, and it's constantly updated. And you're right, we're in the era where there's information overload and there's a lot of personalization going on, but there's also a lot of information coming in. So it does make sense that for designers to learn that.
And that's why the UX designer needs to be part of the data conversation. That's why the UX designers need to already be part of the technical solutioning thing. More and more of the UX is less about the visual, but it's actually about crafting the logic behind personalization and recommendation.
Yeah.
Right. So having that seat on that table will make everybody's life easier.
Sounds good. Are you all doing that in Mindvalley as well? Like, do you get the design team to?
I drag them kicking and screaming, and then I force them to read up about. I try to explain it in a way that they understand, and then also egg them on to say, look, you need to understand the technology stack also, so that you can start to appreciate more about how you need to design stuff that actually leverages the power that that the backend has. So getting them to be aware of that actually has been really, really, again, unlocking a superpower in them.
I see. Well, that's really great, and I think thanks for sharing that piece of information. And your prediction on commoditization, or rather your observation on the trend of commoditization. I think one of the things I observe as well is that there seems to be an increasing demand of UX designers, but yet there's still very little qualified talent in the market. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, there's still a very unequal supply and demand. So if without that adequate supply, the demand will still have a premium, right? So that's at least what I observe. So I'm not sure if it's something you're observing when you're hiring in Malaysia as well.
I've never actually thought about that very much.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like it. I feel like it's about equilibrium right now.
Okay.
I feel
the supply and the demand is pretty matching. Okay.
I feel like the supply and demand is pretty matching. What I do hear sometimes when people are struggling to find UX designers is because of that story I just told you lah. It turns out that those companies are looking for somebody to convince them why UX is important. Then people obviously don't want those type of jobs lah. and then they go and tell everybody, and then they'll go and complain and say, they're very hard to find, UX designers and stuff and so on and so forth. I think when an organization becomes mature in their UX thing, you already naturally have a internal training process so that you're okay with hiring any level of UX designer, and then you train them up. It's the same thing with engineering now as well. We are finding kind of like mature engineering companies where they have got no issues with hiring people, because as long as you have a certain minimum level of competency, they will they train you on the job. I see a similar thing with UX.
Okay.
Maybe a bit lagging in terms of Malaysia. Not many organizations are like that, but I personally know of a few who are like that, which is very encouraging.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, I always believe if possible, we train internally. Even my own team members, I hire fresh and train them internally so that they are more custom fit to the needs of the organization. And if the organization can afford it and have the time and the patience, certainly that's good. But I think one of the things I hear from design leaders is that junior designers are still okay. There's still a good supply of them, but there's not a lot of good mid-level designers, meaning like your senior designers with like 3 to 5 years of experience. So that's what I hear as I speak to them in Singapore. So I'm not sure if that's the case in Malaysia as well.
I think quite a lot of the good ones are like, it's so easy for them to get a job with an international company.
Exactly.
Companies true. Like Booking.com is hiring globally. I don't know about the COVID situation, but before the COVID situation, I lost a few candidates to Booking.com. They were just like hiring as many as they could get their hands on, right?
It's like a talent grab.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And yeah, so
that's fair enough. So we'll end off over here. I just wanted to ask you, do you have any parting advice for no parting advice.
No advice.
No wisdom. Advice. No advice. Okay.
Just answering anybody's like questions.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, Wuhan. We're going to stop Facebook Live soon. So thank you all of you who tune in to Facebook Live. I really appreciate. Since this is our last event for the year, I'm actually taking a break. I've been doing this every week since May. So I do need a break. And at the same time, it's Christmas. So let's I'm wishing you a happy holiday. Very lucky to have Wuhan as our last pleasure. Guest for the year. And next year we will come back, but we won't be doing it every week. So we'll actually do it once a month on the sort of the B2C side, and we'll introduce a new session and format as well. We'll talk more about culture and leadership to also help with the ecosystem, help the ecosystem understand the value of using design. So not just inviting designers, but also inviting people who are driving change in organizations in this case. So we have already our first guest in January, 13th of January, we have the head of design for Referral Candy, who will be coming to our show to share more about his thoughts on design.
What's his name already? Yeah, I think I know him.
Oh man, I need to find a calendar invite now. Hang on. Let me just double check. Okay, let's see.
Sounds very familiar. Head of
Uh,
design, referral candy.
yeah, well, the interesting thing about him is that he's a self-taught designer. So yeah, his name is Benjamin. So he actually came from India. So yeah, we'll have Benjamin George from Referral Candy, and he will be sharing his thoughts on design, about being a self-taught designer, about interviewing 50 students and 160 candidates. So we'll ask him like what has he spotted as common mistakes in the application. So we'll see you all back here on 13 Jan. Please have a wonderful holiday, and wishing you good health and happiness, and a good phase 3 for those who are in Singapore. All right. Okay. Take care. Ciao.
Take care. Bye bye.
Okay.